Hello and welcome back, and in today's figure battle we have a D&D showdown. To your left we have Venger and Dungeon Master 2-pack by Hasbro, part of their Dungeons & Dragons animated series line. And to your right we have Warduke, part of NECA's Dungeons & Dragons Ultimate Action Figure series. Venger and Dungeon Master come in a plastic-free, windowless box, as do all the other figures in this line. Since this release, Hasbro has backtracked on their policy and has announced that collector's lines will go back to window packaging. I'm not sure how going plastic-free affected sales of lines like this, but for Hasbro to reverse on that decision so quickly should tell you something. Back of the box, we can see the two figures included, as well as the few accessories, which include the 2 dice, as well as alternate hands and blast effects for Venger, and a cross-sell featuring the first wave of figures from the line. Warduke comes packed in the book-style box that NECA uses for most of its figures. So you have a flap in the front with the illustration. Open it up, and we get another shot of the figure on the inside of the flap, and we can see the figure itself in the blister with all its accessories. On the back, more shots of the figure with a write-up. Warduke fights as a remorseless, cold-hearted mercenary who works for coin. The evil swordsman serves Kellic as a cohort and adventuring companion from time to time. He wields a flame-tongued longsword and wears a dread helm. He never removes his helmet to reveal his face to others, but the visage beneath is that of a grim, hideously scarred gladiator. We have a list of the included accessories as well as a cross-sell for the other figure in this wave, which is Grimsword. The D&D set comes with this rigid cardboard backdrop that you can fold out. So if you're collecting the entire line, I guess you can use this to display all your figures with. And it is a pretty good size, so you should be able to fit them all against this backdrop. You also get a large and a small die, which if you're not a D&D player, as I am not, these are pretty useless. The diminutive Dungeon Master really only has 2 points of useful articulation, and that is his shoulders. I say useful because his head is a separate piece, but he's got no neck and he's got that long hair in the back, so you really can't move the head at all. His body is a solid piece of plastic with a PVC overcoat. And he does not come with any alternate hands, so he is going to be constantly pointing at something. Hey you! It's over there! I know that guy! That's where I left my car keys! And here we have Venger, who stands about 7 inches tall. He comes with 2 sets of hands. One set has attached blast effects, and the other set is the open hand here and the fist. And I changed out this hand, but I don't think I want to change out any more because I've seen videos of these breaking on other figures, these very narrow attachment tabs. So I think I'm going to leave him as is. The wings come as a separate piece in the box and they just push into the back. I didn't really work them in all the way though. You might have to heat them a little bit to get them in all the way. And I have to say, this is a very frustrating figure. Okay, let's go over articulation. He's got head movement, which he really can't use because his neck joint is encased in this piece of PVC armor. He's got arm articulation, and you can use the elbows, which are single jointed, and the wrists, of course. But these shoulders are going to be limited by these flaps on his armor, which are supposed to be fabric, but they've made them out of PVC, so very limited. And the arms. Now let me show you something really bizarre. He has fully articulated legs. He's got hips, thigh cut, double jointed knees, and ankle rocker. But his legs are entirely encased in this rigid PVC skirt. So what the hell are you going to do with all this leg articulation? Nothing. You can't. Because his legs are encased in this skirt, which barely moves. If they were going to give him all that leg articulation, this should have been cloth goods. So you could actually move the legs. If they planned on making this solid, then why go to the added cost of adding all this articulation? Am I wrong? This just seems like a really bizarre and frustrating decision. You made an action figure that can't act. So yeah, that's Venger. I mean, he can stand up well enough because he's got that skirt to balance him. But besides moving the elbows a little bit, that's about all he can do. And keep in mind, the original retail on this set was $49.99. I bought it because I got it for half price, but why go through the trouble of adding all that added cost and making the set so expensive if you're not going to be able to move the figure? I don't know. Anyway, moving on. As far as the paint apps look pretty clean compared to what we usually see. The Dungeon Master looks good, but for some reason, Venger is giving you the side eye. Did McFarlane do the eyes on this figure? Strange. But other than that, the coloration on him does look good, and they do both look like they stepped right out of the cartoon. This NECA Warduke is a gorgeous figure. He really is. I really like the sculpting. I really like the paint. Nice detail in the sculpt, from the chainmail to the fur loincloth. All the detail on his armor and weapons, right down to the leather straps. Really nice sculpting job on this guy. And the paintwork is also quite good. He's got paint wash all the places where he needs it, like over the fur and over the metallic parts. And you can see the detail on the back as well, on the little pouch, on the various sheaths and scabbards for his weapons. And I also really like this shield. This guy does have an awful lot of points on him. The weapons are very pointy. The horns on the shield, spikes on the boot, the spikes on his, I believe that's a pauldron, that shoulder armor. But the pointiest parts on him are on the helmet, especially the dragon wingtips on the helmet. They are very pointy. If I were to slam my hand on there, I'm sure it would draw blood. But they're so pointy because the plastic tapers up to be very thin on the top of that helmet. So if this were to fall off a shelf from any significant height, I'm not confident that these wingtips would remain intact after the fall. The good news is he is a very well-balanced figure. I've had him in a couple of different poses, and he has not threatened to fall over once. Looking at his accessories, he does have the shield. He's got 3 different bladed weapons. He's got this dagger right here, which fits in the sheath on his hip. The problem with that is, it is very, very tight, and I was not able to get it in there. In fact, there's a little bit of brown paint rub on the tip of the blade from me trying to get it in there. So there's a couple of parts on him. To get it to work properly, you might need to apply heat. So that's why he's holding this dagger as the weapon because I don't want to put it in that sheath. He also has this short sword, which is much looser to fit in. You can get that in and out with no problem. But as you can see, that scabbard is held onto his belt by that little piece of plastic chain. So if this gets caught on something, I'm not confident that that chain will hold. That's just plastic. And he does have a long sword in the scabbard on his back, and this is very, very tight getting in there. Haven't seen any paint rub on this yet, but it is tight, and it is, like I said, very sharp. You also get a flame effect that is made to fit over the sword, but that's as far as I can get it in without heating up this effect and making it more pliable. So that's another point where you're going to need a little bit of heat to get it to work. He has two alternate hands for the right, the more human arm. I don't see much of a difference between this one and the one that I have on there. They're both made to grip things. And he does have a pointy finger, just like the Dungeon Master, so they can get into a pointing contest with each other. And there is also an alternate hand for his left, his armored arm, and that grip is a little bit more open than the hand that's on there now. As far as articulation, nothing fancy. He doesn't have any double joints in him, just single joints in the elbows and the knees, and he's got the usual bicep swivel, a little bit of shoulder movement, a little bit of hip movement. Nothing crazy, because the design of the figure with all the armor pieces on him are gonna limit any articulation you add to the figure. But you are able to get him into enough poses to make him look good. Now it's time to declare a winner in this D&D figure battle, and I think from my comments during the review that you can see where this one is going. But what the hell, let's get it over with so we can get on with our lives.
It's Tiamat!
It looks like Warduke has won the finger pointing contest and has walked away with a new set of wings for himself. In the end, the Dungeon Master and Venger figures look the part, but they really take the action out of the term action figure. Warduke, however, looks great and is well constructed. And while you do need to apply heat to some of the accessories to get them to work properly, I think overall he is the superior figure. Do you agree? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.